very good afternoon, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm Professor Lun Borey, advisor to the AVA president. And of course, it's my sincere honor to facilitate the second panel discussion, focusing on the challenge on the application regulation during this pandemic. So as we already run through our third AVA Congress, I am sure this morning you guys have already listened, speak up, share from many speakers across different countries in Asia. So we do believe that these 40 minutes discussion will enlarge discussion to the rest of the participants. So not to take more time, let me introduce our guest of honor. Of course, our first panelist is Mr. Seng Phivath. He is actually a head of valuation, real estate division, real estate business, and Pawnshop regulator of Cambodia. And our second speaker, in particular, Miss Citra Wulanratri. Actually, she is a head of subdivision, appraiser, actuary, other financial profession, Center of Financial Professions, Supervisory, Ministry of Finance, and exactly from Republic of Indonesia. Third speaker is Kitti.
Kitti is enough. Kitti is enough.
Actually, he did a wonderful presentation this morning. I appreciate you very much, sir. It's an honor. Actually, he's a vice president of Valuation Association of Thailand, our very neighboring country, as a good friend. And last but not least, of course, Ms. Wang Heng Lee, first vice president, Singapore Institute of Surveyors and Evaluator. By looking at our four speakers, we do believe that even it's going to be a little bit short, but I'm sure that our discussion is going to be amazing. So let's start by giving a floor to our speaker, short introduction. I'm sure you guys want to say more. Let's keep it short, clear, clean, and wonderful. Of course, start from an Asian alphabetical order. I will give a floor to our Cambodian friend, starting with letter C, Mr. Seng Phivath. The floor is yours, please, sir. Just a quick, short introduction. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Borey. First of all, I would like to appreciate the leadership of the ASEAN Valuers Association, the Secretariat, and member of our for preparing such a wonderful Congress. And I would also like to extend my sincere gratitude to His Excellency Juana, Director General of Real Estate Business and Pawnshop Regulator, for giving me the opportunity to join this Congress. And I have a great honor and pleasure to attend this Congress as a panelist on the second topic. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Phivath. Of course, we go to the next one is our Indonesian friend. So why don't you give us a short introduction, please? Come on.
Thank you, Professor Borey. Honorable President AVA, Mr. Trek Soknim, distinguished Chief Delegate, and all delegates of AVA countries, and honorable panelists, Mr. Seng Phivath, Mr. Kitti Patpongpibul, Mrs. Wang Heng Lee, and honorable all participants, good afternoon for all of you. My name is Citra Wulanratri, and I'm here on behalf of Center of Financial Profession Supervisory, Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. Currently, there are three professions under our authority. They are profession in accountancy and actuaries and also appraisers. Currently, I am the head of Subdivision of Appraisers, Actuaries, and other financial profession. I'm delighted and I'm honored being here to share the challenge on implement the regulation related failure during the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. Thank you, Professor Borey.
Thank you very much, Citra. So having Singapore friends here is wonderful. So as part of Asian, of course, when we are talking about regulation, Singapore would be number one. We know, we all know. So now let's start from our next friend, Wang Heng Lee. Please give us a short introduction. Can you do a mute, please, Lee?
Wang Heng Lee.
All right.
Kitti.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. Good afternoon, Honorable President of AVA Congress, and dear panelists, and also participant delegates. Yes, thank you for this time to share. I'm actually the first Vice Chairman of the Valuation General Practice Division of SISB. I'm also the Chairperson for the Valuation Committee in Singapore. Besides that, I am working for the Cushman & Wakefield Group. Now I am a consultant. I decided to hand over the reins for being a head to the next generation and also teaching in NUS. That is my experience as well as my role. So I'm taking up more specialized projects nowadays for valuation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lee. So now let's go to our last friend again. Mr. Kitti, this morning you had a wonderful presentation. I earn and pay attention from the beginning to the end. Why don't you give us a short more introduction, please, sir?
Thank you, Professor Borey. As you know, I am Vice President of the Valuer Association of Thailand. Besides this job, I am the Chairman of Housing Finance Association. Before that, I was President of Government Housing Banks and Deputy Governor of the Bank of Thailand. So I'm a bit on the side of financials. I hope that I can give you some information on this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So again, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it is my sincere honor to facilitate such a big group, insightful, mature speaker, focusing on what we call the application of regulation during COVID-19. If I would say, as you know, law, regulator can be very powerful in support operator. To be exact, of course, realtor. So they do very wonderful role in either good time or bad time. So now let's talk a little bit more in particular to our Cambodian side. So these days, of course, during COVID-19, a lot of people are facing major challenge. So now let me go to our Cambodian friend at first, Mr. Phivath. Would you brief us some of the key criteria so that each company can actually obtain their valuation license? So do we really have a company who apply the license? Do they have it, or what are the criteria so that the organization actually is revert them such a license, please, sir?
Yes, once again, thank you, Professor Borey. In order to obtain a valuation license, the company shall apply to real estate business and pawnshop regulator by fulfilling the following conditions, such as they have to have the business register under the law of the commercial law and regulation and registration of the Kingdom of Cambodia.
Yeah. And
another point, the company have to have at least 2 certificate holders of professional valuers, and they have to have a representative to be elected on license, which must be a member of board of director of the company. And the company have to buy a professional identity insurance, which issued by the local insurance company. And the licensee has to obtain a bachelor degree or equivalent certificate or reference letter on at least 6 months in working experience. And another point is the certificate of criminal record. And we have also many points, but I just mentioned the important point. Yes, thank you.
Very good. So I think not just only right here in Cambodia, you see, either in Indonesia, Singapore, or even Thailand, this type of business is very interesting for a lot of people. So back to Cambodian context, do we still have a lot of Cambodian business owner apply during this COVID-19, please? Mr. Phivath?
Yes, thank you for your question, Mr. Borey. In the year 2020, you know, the number of the applicant who apply for license, they were 57 companies, but for the year 2021, it dropped to only until now only around 20 companies. Yes.
Very good. Still interesting number. So
Yeah.
just to facilitate the time now, let me move to our good friend Citra from Indonesia a little bit. So I'm sure now let's start from a very general one. Citra, do you think that such kind of real estate company investment is truly popular in Indonesia, please? Citra?
Yes, Professor Borey. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I mean, let's start from a general question. Is it a lot of business owner, a lot of business people, they are interested in doing business in real estate investment, right? Right there in Indonesia.
Yes, actually the real estate market in Indonesia is still growing. Yeah, although before the pandemic, the trends looks slow down. Yeah, as we know that there is a property bubbling. Yeah, at previous year from 2010 until about 2015, there is a very high increase for the demand of the property of the real estate, actually for especially for a residential. Yeah, and on the nearly previous year, there are a slowdown for the demand of the real estate market. But it's still, yeah, but it's still the market is still growing, but it's, I mean, because we go from the very high baseline, yeah, from 2010 and 2015, there are very high increasing for the price because the high demand. So after 2015, it looks decline.
I see. So if we are looking at Indonesia alone, of course, you play a very big part in terms of population. 300 million population is actually no joke. 50% plus all over the whole Asian country, of course. So now why don't you tell me in terms of this big population, what are really key challenges during the execution of the law? Of course, the government wants to have the realtor, but what are your key challenges? And this key challenge, let us know some of your overcoming techniques so that not only Indonesia, not only Asian, but the world would learn from Indonesia. Why not? Please, Citra, continue.
Is the challenge is, do you mean for the regulation, for the failure?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So as it happened in a lot of countries, so the pandemic affect all aspects in our life. So yeah, implementation for the policies such as work from home really affected the business activity. It's also happened in Indonesia. And for us as a supervisor for financial profession, we are a national regulator for profession in accountancy, actuaries, and valuer, and we conduct registering, licensing, supervision, and also formulate the regulation for the profession. This social distancing policy and also travel restriction forced us to adjust the business process by convert them from partially digital into fully digital. So this condition became the first challenge for us to implement the regulation during the pandemic. And fortunately, the Ministry of Finance had initiated a digital transformation for business process before the COVID-19 pandemic. So it supports us to accelerate the transition. And in the other hand, the COVID-19 pandemic also affect the valuation industry, right? And as mentioned before by Mr. Mutakin, and not only the operation issues such as limitation to operate and limitation to do inspection, the economic downturn caused by COVID-19 pandemic fairly affect demand for valuation. And currently the valuation industry in Indonesia has high dependence on banking sector related valuation projects. So as presented by Mr. Harizul earlier, the 83% valuation project related to the bank assignment. So since the pandemic had already affected nearly every business, it led to decrease in the demand for collateral valuation. And based on the data and surveys, in 2020, the national valuation volume declined 26% from the previous year, and it dropped significantly on the first 3 months of the pandemic. And moreover, the aggregate appraisal firms' income dropped by 16% year on year, and 30% failure firms reduced their workforce. So since this condition raises sustainability issues for several failure firms, especially at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, so it became our concern to implement the regulation related to failure.
Very nice. It's such a wonderful and insight sharing, Citra, again from Indonesia. 300+ million population is actually no joke. Now let me jump a little bit to a good friend in Singapore, of course. And not only in Asian, the world majorly regard Singapore as zero corruption. Correct me if I am wrong, Wang Li, so a good friend. So actually, do Singaporean government actually tolerate some of a regulator? For example, they're already in a hard water. They are already in a hard time. Actually, does really Singaporean government or regulator tolerate or have some part of the new joiner in actually want to get their license? Please, Lee. This is a wonderful question, I'm sure.
Thank you, Professor. Basically, for Singapore, like regulators, before they even can get the regulators to get the license, they actually pass through SISB. So for that matter, the member or those who aspire to become a licensed valuer, they need to be a probation member SISB, and then they have to clock 2 years of the experience. Then after that, the committee in SISB will assess whether they're eligible or they have meet the standards to become a valuer, to become a member of SISB under the valuation division of the institute. So once the members that assess, the committee that assess, the panel assess the member who applies for the membership to upgrade from probationer to member, after we assess it, then we will say yes, the person can be upgraded to be a member, and then after that they can apply to IRAS for the license. So that means they cannot straight away get the license to via IRAS, which is the Inland Railway Authority of Singapore, which is the regulator that issues the license. So in this case, SISB is the one to assess first before they can even go to the next step, become a licensed valuer.
Okay, so very good. Of course, Singapore is still Singapore. You are right there. So why not, Lee, share with us some of the key challenges. Of course, the world, not only Singapore, Cambodian, Asian, are actually facing a critical part. But I'm sure you might share some of the key factors that Singapore have managed. Of course, your Prime Minister is an amazing man. He managed to deal with a lot of things. So in particular on real estate or regular side, from the government, from the operator, what are the major part and how can you guys actually overcome it up until now, please, Lee? There you go.
Thank you. I mean, for Singapore is that we have to self-regulate in a sense is that for that matter, SIC becomes the one to regulate. So we have to work in a soft approach also to look at it. Is that we have to work with the various authorities to the guidelines we set on this thing to regulate the members on that. We talk about this. Like last year, we actually worked with the stock exchange to come up with the standards in terms of the reporting, the requirements for the reports to go up if, let's say, the company needs a report for listing purposes. So we work with the authorities, like we work with another authority that we may have known is this HDB, Housing Development Board. For them to want to admit valuers into the panel, they have to be a member as ISV. They have to be members of a firm and for that matter. So that is where we work with the governments, the authorities to regulate the profession on that. So we have to go through the soft approach, you can say that, not just by the act itself, to regulate the profession.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lee. So now let me jump next question to a very good neighboring friend from Thailand, Mr. Kitti. Of course, we all know Thailand is part of the world tourist destination. For more, for less, you guys actually been affected. So how is the country recovery so far, sir? Instead of the country economic tourism, of course, does it really affect much on the real estate side, both the government and the operator, please, Mr. Kitti?
Yes, with much difficulty, because the tourism, as you know, is a major part of the country's income in the past.
That's right.
Now it's all disappear. So the industry that's involved with tourism, even if we open up a little bit on places like Phuket, as you know, it needs a lot of government assistance to stay alive. So actually, the government is trying very hard to help those enterprise owners to stay or to keep their business as much as possible by relax all regulation. For example, relax the taxations, give out a lot of the subsidies to help with the workers so that these enterprise do not have to let their employee go. In real estate business, the government has been have a lot of help for them as well. First, they relax and lower a lot of fee and tax on legislation to the real estate business. That is very, very, very important. And apart from that, the government rely heavily on the banking system to keep their customer loans as easy as possible. For example, the Bank of Thailand reclassify a lot of bad debt classification, so that the bank doesn't have to call their customer bad loan or NPL.
Okay.
Otherwise, the bank will have to call in their customer. By many relaxation on bad debt classification, the bank industry do not have to put up reserve or write off their debt, or have to take their customer to court, or ask them to repay loan when they are late. That is how we try to help the business to stay alive. Of course, there are other side of the picture. There are many investors are looking for cheap property.
That's
That
right.
is, as you know, in a crisis, there's always problem and opportunities. And that actually the government try to relax the regulations so that the seller do not have to sell at the lower price.
That's right.
At the moment, even if the situation on COVID-19 is still not very good in Thailand, it's still better than a few months ago.
Wonderful.
So the government stopped the lockdown on the business now. Only a few businesses were tightly controlled, like alcohol business, bar business. Other business are now relaxed. So actually, we hope that in the next few months, things will be better, and we don't have the fourth wave, third wave in other countries. Even in the valuation business, you know, in Thailand, I don't know whether you know that we still do not have a legal system for licensing.
Oh, okay.
The valuer licensed by our Valuer Association of Thailand. Or we have another organization that gives special license, that is the Stock Exchange Commission.
Nice.
For those people do the valuation for the real estate related company in the stock exchange.
I see.
And that's why the regulation on the valuer in Thailand are still quite easy, except those who aspire to do valuation for the company listed in the stock exchange. We hope that if the situation relax further, then everybody will be able to open up business, and then everything will be better in the future. We have to wait and see, because the lockdown is only happened on the 15th of November.
I see. So you know, Sir Kitti, my only wish from myself, Cambodia to Thailand and Asian as a whole. It's a wonderful insight sharing, please, sir. So my friend, as a moderator, my job is to facilitate the conversation more effectively, and I need to make sure we manage the time effectively. We already been talking great about what's happening during COVID-19. It's already there. Who knows what's happened tomorrow? I keep asking myself, as always, what's new, what's next? So we already faced such a challenge. So I'm gonna give you guys each about 2 minutes at max to share. Now we already face such kind of problem. So what's next? Learning from these problems, learning from this challenge, what your government is going to do in order to minimize or protect the future risk. Now let us start from our good friend Cambodia side, Mr. Phivath. There you go. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Borey's point. Sorry, there was a call.
Let's keep it 2 minutes at most, please, sir. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Thank you once again, Mr. Borey. You know, Cambodia under the wise leadership of Subdivision Seng, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Cambodia. We have already introduced 10 rounds of high highly effective intervention measures aiming at stabilizing businesses and livelihoods of the people, especially workers, employers, poor families, and those who are more vulnerable to the effect of COVID-19. And relating to the fight against COVID-19, the royal government of Cambodia have chosen vaccination against COVID-19 as a key measure, in addition to the other important measures to control the spread of the pandemic and protect public health and save lives. You know, as of today, 88% of the population of the 16 million people who are above the age of 5 years old are fully vaccinated. And currently, Cambodia has allowed the return of all normal social economic activities, including tourism industry. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so wonderful. Thank you very much. We do hope that this kind of strategy is going to mitigate or protect our Cambodian risk. Now let's go to our Indonesian friend again, Citra. Please, you have 2 minutes to share with us what are your government and you as a regulator yourself is going to protect future risk if something is happening like this again in the future.
Yes, regarding to our task as a financial profession supervisor, we found that during the pandemic, technology has essential role to support the business process. Fortunately, since 2017, Ministry of Finance has been initiating the digital transformation. So the regulation itself already prepared to deliver the advanced services for Indonesian failure. And related to the profession development, before the pandemic, Indonesian Society of Appraisers has been developing information system to digitalize failure and also association business process in order to improve the valuation quality and to improve the service delivery. So this information system can be used by the member, and the failure firms has an option to use the digital platform developed by association or use their own platform. And this information system design integrated with our information system on purpose to provide national property database. And it was undoubtedly that COVID-19 pandemic has led us into a challenging situation, but in the other hand, the massive utilization of technology during the pandemic has improved the digital literacy, and this condition in line with our digitalization agenda. And the pandemic became the catalyst of the process in implementing the agenda. So unfortunately, we have no strong regulation to support valuation industry. In order to provide such legal basis, the government and the association are collaborating in the initiation of Indonesian failure bill. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Citra. I do believe that your strategy and sharing would not only benefit Indonesia, but Asian nation as the world toward the globe. I still love Singapore. Lee, am I able to fly to Singapore tomorrow, please? Will you accept it?
Oh, the travel line is open. We are most welcome to Singapore anytime.
See, make some time to go there. So how Singapore is going to manage or minimize such a future risk if it's up and down like this, Lee? There you go. 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. But first of all, the nation is healthy, stay healthy. First of all, I mean that's what health in a sense. I mean, a healthy lifestyle helps to make sure that the population is as well. And then the next thing, the government is, you are aware the government encourages vaccination, even the boosters for the population, so that be protected from the COVID-19. The future trend we also see is that more and more we work from home, and cut off the norm. It's become a new norm that we see it. And with that method means that the digitalization roadmap will be going to be expedited even faster. In Singapore, government has started on this real estate digitalization roadmap. Of that, the real estate transactions on this thing where our institute is involved in it as one of the key members in this committee. And then looking at the transactions going all the way for the matter from start to the end of it. So the government is very strong in this area, trying to look at this one. So we see that digitalization going using the network, IT network to do all these things will be in the future on that part of it. And the last point I'd like to make is that Singapore also can look into the green sustainability. That means looking at supply chain of certain materials of this for buildings and all this thing, so that we do not depend a lot of things really that deplete the earth on that part. So the green measures, the sustainability, the ESG is a big thing in Singapore on that. So at the moment, Singapore face the crunch of labor crunch in a sense. So that's why you find that construction cost has gone up. Of that, so Singapore is looking into how to make sure that you use technology to do some of the work, so that you don't depend a lot of labor for this matter. So that is, I see how the future for Singapore will be like. Thank you.
Wonderful sharing, Lee. Of course, our first rule is stay healthy. Everybody healthy, we can actually do more. Wonderful, Lee. Appreciate that. So to our very last speaker, my respect to you, Mr. Kitti. How is Thailand is going to, actually everyone is under recovery process. It may take some time. So in the future, how Thailand is going to mitigate such a risk, please? Sir, there you go.
Thank you, Professor. One thing we learn in Thailand, to be able to control this risk is monitoring. As to be able to have a good information on the spread of the disease and what happened in all the community. We have a very good success with what we call community volunteers for monitoring.
I see.
In every commodities, we ask each community to mobilize volunteer to monitor what happened in their communities. It has both benefit. First, in the pandemic, most of the problem in our country come from traveling, and people when they lose the job, they move back to their city or town or villages elsewhere, and this causes a lot of spread in the disease. In these communities, you will have, I think, a large number of volunteers to monitor people who come in from outside or who are going to other communities. And this information are very, very important for the authority to deal with the disease and the problem quickly. And these volunteers in Thailand are very enthusiastic, and I think we are quite successful with these tool in controlling the risk and the spread of the disease. Now we are pretty sure that all the measures to control the spread of the disease in Thailand are well on the way. People now are much more confident. We will not have any big spread explosion like before.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So, of course, again, my friend, we are actually under the 23rd AVA Congress, a second panelist discussion on what I call a challenge on the application of the regulation during COVID-19. We have a wonderful discussion from a dear friend, Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand and Singapore, we do believe that this insight sharing would benefit more to our participants. And I hope if you guys have more questions, feel free to contact our guest speaker. And actually, before I even end our discussion, why don't you give us a smile? Then, my dear people, please give us one click picture. Come on. Thank you very much. So it's my sincere honor. I hope to visit you guys out there in Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand, please. Thank you very much.
Welcome.